We're waiting for a few people to come online.
Here, I'm an architect, and our practice is focused on working for local authorities, building council housing for rent predominantly. That's our big focus, that's what we do. So we're constantly looking for new ideas and ways to work with young people to understand how they feel about their current neighbourhoods and how they might like to imagine them changing, and what are their priorities really. So this is really interesting, great to see this panel together, really from a diverse set of backgrounds, from practitioners and policymakers. And so I'm going to just do a little bit of housekeeping to start with. We are currently already recording, so just so everybody's aware that this is recorded and it's going to be distributed on YouTube following the event, just so everybody's aware of that. We're going to use the Q&A for any questions. So each of the everybody's going to present for 5 or 8 minutes. Then we're going to use the Q&A to have a session with responses after the speakers have spoken. So please feel free to put your questions in there and I will put them to our speakers as and when. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who I know very well. So Toni worked for Karakusevic Carson Architects as an engagement specialist, having been part of a social value initiative we had at a estate that we were working on. So I think she's speaking from first-hand of experience of our engagement strategies and how well they worked and her experience of those. So I'm going to hand over to Toni to start us off.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to show my screen. Okay, so yeah, as Abigail's already said, I used to work for Karakusevic Carson Architects, and I still sort of work within the built environment. So I'm just going to take you guys through how I think young people can be involved more in the design process and how I think that can be done. So to start, I think the key is getting the attention of young people and then encouraging them to show up and be present at consultation events. Why I think it's important to engage young people is that their views and experiences can be useful influences for the design of spaces, and that's in the present and in the future of those spaces. So because I feel like younger generations in the future will share similarities with that of now. So that will be the need for having space to study and space to spend time with friends, and the need to feel safe and welcome in spaces. And I've found that oftentimes when community engagement programs are taking place, the audience ends up being adults and parents, and young people generally might not think that these consultation events and things like that are of their concern. However, like projects tend to take sometimes even around 10 years to complete, so rarely once they're complete, the end user is likely to be the young people that were there at the beginning of the process. So yeah, so that's why I think it's important for them to be involved. And touching on my last point of young people not thinking that conversations concern them, that could just be their own views. Maybe they think that it's for their parents to show up and sort of get involved in the design process for them, but it could also be their interpretation of the marketing material for the consultation event. So what I wanted to touch on for this is because I feel like young people are able to give great contributions anyway, but I feel like it's just reaching them and getting them in the space to speak and to contribute basically. So here I've just basically given some examples of how to do that. So my first example is via messaging. So when giving through your output, whether that's leaflets or posters or a newsletter on the council website, I feel like while it's important to obviously engage the whole vast community and just invite residents in general, I feel like to specifically get young people involved, I feel like it could be useful to have very specific messaging that targets them directly as well. So that could be having additional output that targets young people, saying, are you a young person aged between I don't know, 13 to 18, for example, living in said location, and then that will let them know that this is actually directed at them, and that their input is wanted as well as that of that older generation. Another way that I feel like we can reach young people is via research, and that would basically be researching what is the best way to reach them. And I feel like at the moment that would be social media rather than leaflets through the door and posters. I feel like you can utilize a lot of the social media platforms now to have geographic location targets. So you can literally target a specific location and set an age group in your adverts. And that's something that they will more likely see and be aware of what's going on in the area. And then finally, as Abigail outlined, sorry, I went ahead of myself. Abigail outlined earlier that I was myself involved in sort of a social value program. So I have direct experience of that. And I feel like a way to get young people involved in the conversations is sometimes through social value and incentives. So oftentimes young people are very busy. They've got, not saying adults are not busy, but like they've got they're either studying, maybe working while they're studying, and trying to find time for a social life as well. So I feel like adding incentives for reasons why they might want to get involved in the process is also useful. And for me, I was offered an internship, which was a great incentive for me to want to get involved, and that provided me with obviously there was financial benefit because I was getting paid, and also great experience for my future and to build my career. So that's something that if those things were offered more to young people, that would encourage them to get involved more. And also while working at Karakusevic Carson Architects, we also did a lot of work with another company called Beyond the Box, and they focus heavily on social value and engaging young people. And I feel like their methods are really good in getting young people involved, and it's a lot of sort of arts and culture, things that are really interesting to young people in whatever given area that they're working in. And that helps to engage young people alongside a consultation process. So while you've got the social value going on, that could be young people doing a podcast in their area, or planning a big event, which is an example that we did do on one of our projects, that can work alongside the consultation process, because that's sort of the thing that's grabbing their attention. And then once you've got their attention, then you can let them know about we're also doing this engagement, this consultation process for design, get involved with that as well. So I feel like what I'm trying to say here is the key thing is just reaching young people, and then everything else can come after that, which I basically outlined in my summary, which is, yeah, I think young people can give great contributions, but the key is just finding ways to get their contributions and get them basically in the spaces to contribute. And that is the end of that.
Thanks, Toni. That was great. Yeah, so if anybody's got questions for Toni, I've already got some, then please can you start putting them in the Q&A, and we'll pass them on. Great timekeeping, Toni, too. So we're passing quickly on to Mark Southgate. So I'm going to do a quick introduction. So Mark is the chief exec of an educational charity called MOBIE, which stands for Ministry of Building, Innovation and Education, which gives you pretty much a good idea of what he's getting at and they're getting at. So he's a town planner. His background includes working at the planning inspectorate, local authorities. He's head of planning at RSPB and the Environment Agency. So working with local authorities, but then also with national bodies. He's also got an interest in modern methods of construction in housing. So I'll pass over to you, Mark, to
Thanks, Abigail. Thank you very much. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Yes, you did disclose I'm a town planner. Don't boo and hiss too loudly. But I think following on from Toni, I think my big learning is that actually planning consultations are pretty boring. I'm not convinced I get involved in them as an adult. So why would a young person? So I think that the lesson from the MOBIE is be as open as you possibly can when you ask young people for their views. They will be very happy to come forward with them, but not if they think it's constrained, not if they think it's a done deal. So I think that ability to be open when you ask them is the most important thing. I'll do a quick intro to MOBIE, and I'm just going to talk about a couple of things we do, our design challenges, our education, and how that links to asking young people to get involved in design. MOBIE's all about two things: trying to improve the quality of home building in the UK, because it's not good enough, be it in its green credentials, usability, just how it performs, waste, etc., and actually doing that through the lens of young people. So getting young people to be excited by home building and what that offers, and getting them to come in and change the industry. So that's what we're all about. And we do that through three things: design challenges, education, and industry partnerships. I won't cover the latter one in any detail. And we were set up by George Clark, the architect and TV personality. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, TV presenter. He hates that word, personality. TV presenter, because that's something he's really passionate about. How do we get youngsters involved in design and get them to coming into the industry like he did? We've now done, over 12 challenges now. We've done them nationally, we've done them in localities, we've done them with local government, we've done them with companies, we've done them with charities, and we've done them all over the place. What I'll do is I'll illustrate what young people think about home based on one. Home in 2030 was a challenge that we ran alongside a professional architects competition, which was really interesting itself. Government commissioned this. And interestingly, it's three government departments. It was MHCLG as they were, now DLUC, but basically communities and homes and local government. BAYS in terms of energy and carbon emissions, and Department of Health and Social Care in terms of healthy ageing and living. Really interesting that those three government departments came together and we ran this alongside that competition. And here's some of the designs which I'll share with you. And the bottom right shows the amazing design capability young kids have got in terms of digital design. That's in the 11 to 14 year category. It blows my mind. We're often really surprised at how good young people are. A couple of others are from degree students, but their sort of 7 themes came out of this. And we have to be careful because we sort of led them down in terms of the briefs, because you can imagine if it's health and energy and communities, then that's where they were coming from. But adaptability and flexibility were really high up on the agenda in terms of, our lives change and can our homes change with us. Sustainability, obviously, carbon emissions being at the top, but green aspects, healthy living, well-being were definitely there. We did ask them to look at new technology. They came up with some fantastic ideas, the self-making bed and the self-cleaning windows and self-cleaning services. I loved, if we only could have self-cleaning surfaces, but real invention in terms of what the youngsters wanted. But I love the self-making bed, and that was from a teenager. I thought it was brilliant. Community and sort of social interaction and shared spaces. And this was prior to COVID. This was just before we had COVID pandemic. And my experience based on that is that's come up the agenda even more. So that focus on actually social wellbeing, and the winning design, which is the one on the left, was a university student. That was all about how you bring greening and home growing of food and community into the centre of what is a garage site in the middle of Nottingham. Unpromising site, but a really inventive scheme. And it was all about sharing and growing. A real focus on the user. They really think about the user. I don't think we're that good actually in housing at thinking about the user. Sometimes we tend to produce standard house products and say, well, there you go, here's your relative lack of choice. They were really focused on, is it single parents, is it elderly, was it multi-generational living, was it disadvantaged people or vulnerable people, and really designed around that. And finally, although they didn't say it up front, affordability is absolutely at the height of their agenda, because how do we afford the homes of the future? And these are some of the finalists. I'm showing this picture just because it shows the sort of the range of people from quite young to quite old. Just so happens a lot of the finalists and winners were female, not all of them, but that's really good in terms of sort of diversity in the industry. And then actually this opens up opportunities. So the winners of some of our design competitions, this is Dudley from the one we ran in 2018. They got to have a stand made at UK Construction Week, and they're sitting in their final design, and they saw that in VR. We've got this is one of the Home of 2030 winners. Ella, she then went on to be one of our experts in the videos we've done with Twinkle called Building Our Future. I'll send you a link in a minute, which is all about how you get primary school kids involved in home and the built environment, and thinking about what are the sustainable aspects of home. And we've had them presenting in front of the Mayor at the Design Future London Awards, which we were very pleased to be commended for in the TET Inspire Future Generation Awards, and the GLA won Local Authority Year based on this as well. So we've had them presenting in front of this. Megan on the left, that's her at the awards. She went on to do a video for a national, as a vox pop for a national levelling up conference. And then Ben there, he did a joint article with our head of design for 90 for 90, which is building centre series about the 90 favourite buildings from 90 prominent people. So he was there with people like Joanne Lumley and prominent architects, and he was talking about the Alexandra and Ainsworth estate. Really important we give young people to say about why that matters, and I think it's really interesting. He shows a social housing estate and a fairly brutalist one at that. for all those reasons. The education pathway, then having inspired them, we need to make sure we teach them the right things. So we do stuff from BTEC up to PhD, but really what I call modern construction, and that is sustainable construction, including retrofit, increasing use of digital in the industry, and thinking about new materials and different ways of manufacturing. And then finally, this is why I call our reasons to be cheerful slide. This is the first winners of the 2018 competition that was run by MOBIE before I joined. All girls school, quite deprived part of Nottingham. Competition from 11 to 11-year-olds to 25-year-olds. These are the 11 to 14-year category. They were the overall winners. 2 of those girls have now gone on to study built environment or interior architecture at university, and they hadn't come across this before. So in terms of opening it up and the appetite of young people to get involved in the industry, it's there. We've just got to harness it and give them a route through. So that's what we try and do. And we're going to do that through 2 current challenges. We've got one with Mace and Grimshaw running, just launched last week, a couple of weeks ago, on retrofit. Big challenge, 27 million homes to be retrofit. How do we do that? So we're asking young people for their views on that. And then very excitingly with the Mayor of London, the second Design Future London Challenge has got Microsoft coming on board with Minecraft, and we're opening up to primary schools to design the future of Croydon in Minecraft. And we know from previous challenges that their digital design capabilities are quite phenomenal. So they will come up with some amazing schemes. But yeah, great to have Minecraft on board. So that's broadly what we do. But yeah, I think my main reflection is keep your brief as open as possible, and they will come, and they will come with the most amazing creative ideas. Thank you, Abigail.
Thanks, Mark. That's great. So we're going to hand over to Bonnie Kwok next. She is a senior urban designer at Cambridge Council, and she won the Individual of the Year award at the Inspire Future Generations from TETS this year. So congratulations, Bonnie. Lovely to have you with us. So she leads the youth engagement services at Cambridge Council. This includes running workshops and trying to increase the agency of young people in the built environment. So I'm going to hand over to Bonnie to let us know more.
Thank you, Abigail. I'm just going to share screen now. Please let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, that's working.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to join the Fountain Education Trust Dialogues and learn from other experts. So just a very quick introduction about our service. So Greater Cambridgeshire Planning's Youth Engagement Service has 3 key service offers. We offer youth engagement workshops, and we looked at how we can support housing, public realm, public art development, not just in Greater Cambridge, but outside of Cambridge as well. We also offer work experience programs and apprenticeships to help children and young people with their career development in architecture, urban design, town planning, landscape design. We also do outreach projects, and that's more high-level projects. For example, looking at master plan, area action plans, etc., by going to youth clubs, scouts, etc., to help build children's confidence in capacity building and also help with their education. So today I'm going to talk about the context for youth engagement in Greater Cambridge, but I believe it's transferable and also apply locally, nationally, and even internationally. I'm then going to use a case study to highlight my experience, and then I'm going to share the outcome and lessons learned. So the context for youth engagement from a national level, obviously, it is the National Planning Policy Framework Policies 132 and 133, which talks about the importance of engaging people at all levels, including children and young people. 133 talks about local planning authorities having the necessary tools. And in Greater Cambridge, we're so lucky to have this youth engagement team to help sort of outreach to children and young people to make sure they have a genuine say in the planning process. Internationally, we are underpinned by the UN Sustainability Agenda. So Greater Cambridge is employed by South Cambridgeshire District Council. So we all accord with South Cam's Code of Governance in terms of community engagement. And governing the wider Cambridge growth, we have the Cambridgeshire Quality Charter for Growth, the 4 Cs: community, connectivity, climate, and character. And that sort of forms a really useful framework for youth engagement. So the case study I'm going to talk about is the North East Cambridge Area Action Plan. It is currently going through consultation, and the vision for North East Cambridge, which sets around the second train station of Cambridge, which is called Cambridge North. It's centered around 182 hectares of brownfield sites, providing 27 hectares of public open space. The vision is to create 8,300 odd homes for 16,000 residents, 40% being affordable homes, 15,000 jobs on site with 3 new schools. Here you can see that's the high level vision. And it's really important we get the children who currently live in the local area to have a say on the type of homes they want. And that's very fitting with today's topic, designing future homes with young people. So here is an aerial map. It's a Google map. You can see here the National Rail sign, that's where Cambridge North Station is. And basically all this area here is area under review, and that's where North East Cambridge is. So here is a route. So what we did was our policy team went to Shirley School, which is a school so around this area, not far. It's got quite a high number of students who are very who are in sort of different demographic areas. So we have people from different nationalities. I believe they speak 73 languages, and including Gypsies and Travelers community. So it's a really, really representative sort of group to ensure that we have the high level of representativeness. We because the site is quite large, so we decided to run a video tour. Normally with this kind of workshops, we'll do a physical walkabout, but in this case, because the site is quite large and we only had 2 half days to run it, so we sort of did a video tour to show the experience from school around the site, but also take into part 2 of the engagement, which was to look at the life science proposal and ask the children to design some street furniture for a project to enhance the public realm. This is a bigger picture, again, to show the context, with Cambridge City Centre being here. And then this is the main station, and this is the secondary station, and our site is where the red dot over here. Now, with the virtual walkabout, this is where Shirley School is, and that was the tour we did. So myself and my team sort of did a video tour with some editing, and then we sort of showed them the experience. We asked the children to look at the tour very, very carefully, and then we asked them to fill in a questionnaire for us to understand the 3 most important elements that they saw during the tour. So in youth research is to help inform place feelings and home range, and that data itself can help us inform how to better plan the spaces in the area. Here's an extract of the North East Cambridge AAP, which talks about the density and sort of the different land uses, as you can see, and we show that to the children as well. And underpin all the work we do is a framework. So we have this framework, which was a result of my PhD study at looking at how best to engage children and young people. So it's divided into 4 areas. We look at the impact on the decision-making process. We look at the process, whether there's adequate opportunities for people to have a say, how fun it is. We also look at the educational level to make sure it aligns with the national curriculum subjects, and also practical factors, such as the requirements, resources, etc., DBS check, all that. And we gave this survey form for the children to fill in. It's done very fresh, just last month. It's got 12 questions, and here it's just 9 questions to show you what sort of houses they like, whether it's flats or houses, the architectural language in terms of facilities, and also we look at the current living arrangement, and that ties with the national space standards to see whether it's overcrowded, and as we plan for this new place, what sort of homes shall we build to accommodate the needs of our children. So here's some really interesting statistics from the survey. So you can see actually most children in this area prefer houses. And also in terms of heights, they're not averse to 3 stories or multi-story, as you can see, which is contrary to some of what the parish council might think, which have a little bit worry about height. And here you can see question 3, it talks about the architectural languages. We had sort of different houses to represent the houses in Greater Cambridge, modern, contemporary, and it is quite widespread. As you can see, a lot of children actually quite like bespoke traditional design, which is this picture here. But they're also quite happy with this sort of modern design as well, which you can find in Great Knighton, that sort of area. This question sort of looks at the type of play area they like. So we've got something that's quite natural or something that's quite industrial style combined with natural or very industrial style. And you can see actually they quite like that industrial sort of trend. Here it talks about the facilities that they like to see in the new neighborhood, with restaurants, sports field, play park being on top of the agenda. And then the next question sort of talks about where they hang out. So we want to build these special places for children because what we think might not be what they think. And interesting enough, for this group, it's indoor gaming arcade, maybe because it's quite cold. Last month when they did the survey, and it's also looked about playgrounds as well and shopping center. So a quite interesting mix, really. The second exercise we asked them to do was to design a bench for this development, which was quite close to this to North Cambridge station, and is to design a bench, some benches, street furniture for this. So this is a building. Here you can see it's a life science building, which is quite a common type of project in Greater Cambridge, with this being in the Silicon Valley of UK. And here is the map showing what we asked them to do. The activities we did with the children included tours, exercise, which is a design competition of the furniture. The winning design will be built based on the design. Some will be given to the school, some will be put on site subject to planning approval. The research you see, myself and my team will interpret the data to produce reports. The report will form part of the statement of community involvement, and also we continue to do research and contribute to organizations such as the Design Council or the Thornton Education Trust to see how we can add value to the engagement process. Here is some beautiful furniture, very much like what Mark said, children, they're amazing designers. So you can see they kind of designed some benches based on the 4 C's here. The first one on the left-hand side, the middle one is of the flowery roses picnic table and the duck bird bench. And we sort of interpreted that into working drawings, as you can see. So this is the developers design team working with us, coming up with some really serious ideas with the comply with health and safety. This is one of the winning design. Hugo, he designed the sausage dog bench, is to accommodate as many people as possible. He even thought about the materials, metal, wood, concrete, and that's the working drawing. So that's amazing. Subject to planning approval, it will be turned into that furniture. So it's really important to sort of celebrate. So we run an exhibition, we frame all the children's drawings in part 2 of the youth engagement. So there's an exhibition followed by trophies for the winners and those shortlisted. We get counselors, developers on board because it's very much about partnership working. And we also get feedback forms for parents, as you can see, talk to them and ask them to fill in forms. So teachers, parents, students all get to fill in a form to tell us how we did. Here's some other designs which are amazing. We had 2 templates, one with the outline with the furniture. One is just a blank page to accommodate different capabilities and needs, design needs. Here's just to celebrate. And we do a lot of LinkedIn posts. It's really important to talk about the good work to get buy-in and lessons learned. So early engagement is key, structural approach supported by youth engagement framework, partnership working, project-based with an aim, feedback at all levels, and celebrate success. And thank you, that's my contact details.
Thanks, Bonnie. Wow, I love the benches, they're just great note. I love the fact that when you gave them a blank piece of paper, they did something so expressive and just went with it, just amazing, thanks. Okay, I'm gonna pass on to Helena Thompson. So she's the artistic director of SPID, which is the Social Political Independent Direct. She's a script writer for theatre, film and TV, and she works with community theatre projects predominantly, very often on council estates. So she's looking at ways in which giving youth skills around developing their oral histories and the design skills can start to challenge some of the stereotypes that people have around social housing. So I'm really looking forward to this. Thanks. Over to you, Helena.
Thank you. Oh, well, I am excited to be here. Yeah, that's right. So what SPID does is we make art that advocates housing justice. and we focus on giving young people a voice because they're at the leading edge of artistic activism. We have 4 free programs that we run. So our flagship one is Estate Ends. That is all about bringing living history to life, challenging the stereotypes around social housing, celebrating estates history. We also run Estate Voices. Estate Voices is mainly about advocacy. It's about bringing housing activists together with artists pushing for social change. And that one is cross-generational. Far, Far Away is our program for 8 to 13-year-olds. It's about youth truth. It's about looking at the bigger picture and listening, developing skills in arts, theatre and film. And then we have Community Hub, which is about well-being. It's things like free drama, free yoga happening on council estates. What we try to do when we are championing the value of social housing and engaging young people is we try to bring it to life, and we try to make it exciting for them and to give them a platform to show other people how they view the value of social housing. So I do have a little clip here that I'm going to share. Let's see. I think it's just a couple of minutes long. Yeah, here we go.
SPID have done. They've offered a lot of young people opportunities that they probably wouldn't have had if we not had that space, not just to our residents, but also to the wider community.
If this was taken away, I would not be happy. I'd probably start a protest to bring it back, because I really like this place. It's fun. I get to meet new people. I just like coming here.
The latest consultation still went ahead despite major concerns about lost dogs. Therefore, can any one of you address these allegations?
I'll take it.
Yes.
These concerns have no legitimate source. Yes, we were ahead of the consultation, and yes, it was a huge success.
He's from my estate. He's from our ends.
There we go. So you may have picked up, we're based on a council estate close to Grenfell, and we've been there for 17 years. We've started a refurbishment of our neglected space. And so the need for positive social change has become more widely recognised. So is the demand for that amongst young people. So a lot of what we do is we try to show that what happened at Grenfell was really a metaphor for social injustice. And we try to join up the dots in terms of housing justice on other bigger issues, because we find that those are the bigger issues that young people are most interested in. So wage justice, climate justice, youth justice, social justice. We have a number of ways of describing the value of housing justice, and we say that a safe home should be where history lives on, a safe home should be what young people inherit, a safe home should be for everybody. And it's really about saying that home is where social justice starts, and therefore engaging people in any kind of dialogue over how those homes are planned and how consultations work is extremely valuable. We think that there are issues around freedom and empowerment for young people. So we have quite specifically a programme which is called Join Justice, Feel Better. And that looks at wider global asks, because we think that globally Grenfell has the power to bring really systemic change. So the kinds of things that young people have worked with us to develop in terms of their global asks are, let's see, home grow. So saying that it shouldn't be legal to destroy the planet, shipping in the things that you don't need or you could make yourself. Tax the multinationals, so saying it shouldn't be possible for the big companies to pay almost nothing by being based nowhere. reparations and global minimum wage. So saying it shouldn't be legal for people of colour in developing countries to be paid almost nothing for the benefit of the West, and stop the hate. So saying big tech shouldn't be allowed to monetize death threats and troll farms. And although that may sound on the face of it like it doesn't have very much to do with architecture, it does have quite a lot to do with social justice and Grenfell, and with a sense that young people are the people who are losing out when the algorithms of profit on the way down are prioritised. So we tend to say that we feel really positive about the future, and that we find that young people's engagement with the value of social housing is really inspiring, and it means more than itself, it's symbolic. So I will move on to give you a flavour of one of the other programmes we run, which is Estate Ends. And this is a little film that was made by Kamani. Kamani is not in education, employment or training, and he is spectacularly talented. It's only, I think, 30 seconds long. Okay, here's Kamani bigging up Estate Ends.
Yo, my people, it's your boy Kimani, youth for Spook Theatre, and guess what? Estate Ends is back again, yeah? So basically, what's going to be happening is going to be performing poetry and interviewing residents about one and only Kensal House. But that's not all. It will be screened at the one, the only, BFI! Paul Blimey! Screening at the BFI, yeah? This must cost something from a child to go and SPID theatre. No, completely free. Literally, the reason why I can say Ends, obviously, I came there to improve my acting and whatnot, made some good friends in the process. The funniest moment, I can't lie, it was after the Sewage We Save shoot. So obviously, me and the man then were cast. It was scenes, you know. And then, you know what I would recommend? Obviously, these men will actually be equipped with not just acting, life-wise. Obviously, you'll gain like a lot of skills, if you know what I mean. But that's just me, innit? Sign up now!
All right, and just to wrap it up, a final little image to share with you to give you a flavour. Here it is. So this is the project that Kamani is bigging up. And you can see what we're doing really is coming at architecture sideways, right? So the truth is we're working with young people to make a documentary about the history of Kensal House, which is where we have this groundbreaking 2.6 million refurbishment project. But the way we're pitching it is to say, look, you're going to make a film, it's going to be screened at the BFI, you can express your views with poetry, you can stand up for social housing. And that is really what we've learned, that if you go out to young people and say, get involved in a consultation or find out about architecture, it is not particularly appealing, and especially the ones who need it most tend not to have the time, even if it's free, to get involved. So you need to team up with these high profile partners like the BFI, and we work across museums and theatres as well as schools and council estates. And you also need to be connecting up with other skills like film and artistic activism. And we think if you do that, you are at the front of social change. It's an absolute privilege, and thank you for listening.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Helena. That's really inspiring. I think it's a great bookend somehow, having Toni at the beginning, and she was also talking about how we can use culture to bring local people into conversations. But something that we hear a lot from youth initiatives that we get engaged with is about trying to enable young people to alter the narrative around the areas in which they live and to take control of that as well. I think we find very often there's these generational differences in how people perceive their neighbourhoods. And I wondered if you found that as well, Helena, in your work, because obviously you're focused on youth engagement, but you also do work with broader demographics. Do you feel like there's something specific that young people bring that you find is something we should take away as professionals in terms of their relationship to their home specifically? I know you've talked about broader issues, but...
Yeah, I suppose so young people are, they are born activists, so they have an appetite for social change, and the way that manifests itself in terms of their connection to their home is almost indigenous. So we talk about the power of shared space, the connection to history and to land, and if you look at the way social change is most successful, it does tend to be in terms of either artistic activism or in terms of indigenous communities, or both. And young people seem to have that in their heart. They understand that the home is where history and land and shared experience are more valuable really than money. So it is a very emotional, inspiring subject for them. And I think that's why we sort of reinterpreted our mission statement, focusing on, well, what does home mean? You know, it's the place where history lives on, because yeah, it definitely inspires them, and it provides a platform for them to inspire others.
Yeah, that's great. I love this idea of, yes, everybody here is talking about giving young people a platform. I don't know, Toni, if you wanted to just talk about some of your experience in Brent in relation to what Helena's been talking about and some of the experiences you had there.
Yeah, I feel like how Helena's spoke about arts and culture and how like you need to make the process a lot more interesting. I feel like it's similar to how I sort of said with the social value working with sort of consultation processes. So I feel like, yeah, having something that will actually interest young people, which I feel like you can find that out from them as well. So do your research and then use that to sort of get them involved is very helpful. And I feel like that worked quite well with the Set Raffles project. We had the big event in Wembley Stadium, and that was for young people to sort of showcase their talents, whether it's dancing, singing, poetry, and that type of thing got them involved and made them aware that they could also get involved in the design process. And obviously that was of interest to them. So I think it's just finding out that interest and making it creative, making it interesting, and using both of those to work together.
Thanks, Toni. And I suppose, Bonnie, you've answered some questions in the chat. So anybody else who's got questions, please type them in the chat and speakers will respond. Bonnie, I suppose you thought a slightly more difficult challenge to try to get people engaged with this idea of local plans. And I know typically it's really hard to get engagement at that strategic level. So I think it's really interesting, this idea of zooming in on very small scale interventions in order to start a conversation about a wider neighbourhood. Do you feel like there's specific things that have started to change your approach to planning policy that you can start to implement? Do you think that you have that ability to really take what the younger people that you're working with are setting out as their priorities and maybe enforce that somehow through policy? Is that something that the British system enables?
Abigail, can I contribute towards that?
Yeah, do.
Yes. Yeah, so at plan making level, I think that's a really interesting subject. And in South Cambridgeshire District Council, our councillors are working together towards that. They've actually set up a scrutiny committee to look at how the council as a whole is engaging children, young people. So we have many different departments, and I work in the planning department. So we're contributing towards that committee to see, as we're doing the local plan, which is going to be hopefully published in the next few years, and which will set the blueprint for all developments in the next 5, 15, 20 years. We have children's input. So yeah, we get councillors buy-in, we have planning committee buy-in, we have officers buy-in, we have senior managers buy-in. So I think that sort of collaborative working is really important. As we're doing that local plan, we already have that inputted into the process. We've allocated resources, time for that. So I think that's where we are.
You know, that sounds great. I mean, I know that we all write statements of community involvement as architects, which accompany our planning submissions, but it's really interesting to think about how we can really embed that into planning policy. I don't know, Mark, maybe putting your planning hat on, you could speak to that. And I think one of the questions we have in the chat as well is really about how we empower young people to become ambassadors for their communities. And I think that's something that maybe planning can even take up and support those more diverse voices.
Yeah, thank you, Abigail. As a planner, I think local plan process is much underloved. It's actually the clues in planning. It's the place where actually they get to shape people get to shape the future. And I think I tip my hat to Cambridgeshire in terms of being open to actually ask open questions, because that takes a bit of bravery, because you don't know what you're going to get back. I think what you've seen from Bonnie, and I love those benches, they are just amazing, is they've got fantastic ideas, and they are probably ideas that no adult will come up with. So they are throwing in stuff you just don't think about, and the creativity is there. So I think having the bravery to harness that is a good thing. And fundamentally, as a planner, it's about the future. Whose future is it? It's not mine, it's theirs. We should be asking young people, because they are the people who inherit this, and they are interested in fairness, as we've heard from Helena. They're interested in climate change. They're interested in social housing. Social housing has been a strong theme of some of our challenges in terms of what's come forward. Megan, who is one of the pictures I showed, she said, had it not been for social housing, growing up in a single parent family, she wouldn't have had a roof to live under. So it's really important for those young people. I think them getting their say, that is often quite a different view from more established older communities. So I just think hats off to Cambridgeshire. Everybody should do it. Let's all be brave and just open up and see what young people have to say.
And Abigail, if I just can pick it up there, I think actually one of the things is to get the local councils across, because of the local plan. This is the time in terms of policy where we can do the step change, because of those policies that are in place, but they're often not implemented. So I think that is a really good time. I think one of the issues, though, is house builders. We talk about planning and everything else, but actually the house builders are the ones having to try and get them to buy into it. So we can talk about social housing, etc., but it's often the private housing which actually creates these not really great environments, nor do they actually, more importantly, don't even engage in the first place unless there's really pressure on them to do so. So I think it's how one goes about getting the house building, say, federation or the house builders to actually have that step change in their own minds. And I'm going to say to Mark, is this something you've seen at all with your hat on with MOBIE, but also whether to add to that about the skills, how they can bring skill set into that house building side of it, because that seems to be, again, a bit of a gap, generally speaking.
I'll pick one example of a leading authority. So Sunderland, who we've worked with already and we'll probably work with again, are doing a major rescale development in their area, Riverside, Sunderland. They want to do that using modern methods of construction. They're thinking about the manufacturing history of Sunderland, shipbuilding, glass making, now Nissan, and how that might work in construction. So instead of just doing the regeneration, they also we put in a joint bid with the council, the college and ourselves, for Levelling Up Fund in the first round, and got it to create what we call HICSA, the Housing Innovation and Construction Skills Academy, which is all about training young people in the future of construction. So jobs of the future. They've got a 10-year pipeline, Sunderland. So actually, young people can see in what is a fairly deprived part of the northeast, that actually there's a prospect of those homes being built for 10 years. That's a job for at least part of my lifetime. So it's really making it's a triangle between, we're doing redevelopment, we've got a manufacturing history. Let's make sure we train our Indigenous population so that they can grasp those skills. So I think it's showing vision. I wonder whether local authorities have the vision we've had in the past. We've lost some of that. So I just like to celebrate people like Cambridgeshire and South Cambridgeshire and Sunderland when they've actually shown that vision and they're putting their money where their mouth is. So yeah, so I think there is a real opportunity, and I think, but it's that openness as well, isn't it? It's that ability just to say, we don't quite know what we're going to get back, but normally what you get back is just way more than you thought you'd ever get. So yeah, you're pleasantly surprised, and if not amazed.
Excellent, thank you.
I think we've answered all the questions in the Q&A. So if anybody's got any burning questions, we've still got 7 minutes to go. So type away. In the meantime, I'm going to ask a question about environmental activism. I think we've talked about the fact that the older generations maybe haven't got quite so much skin in the game, so to say, when it comes to climate change. So what is it that that young people are foregrounding in terms of environmental sustainability, and how can we really push that? And I suppose, Bonnie, that's partly through planning policy, but really I know lots of councils have declared carbon emergencies or climate emergencies. So are there other ways that we can really try to grasp those challenges and then frame them and give some kind of agency to young people to move those themes forward and to take some agency over climate change? And would that be a really good way? And have you seen young people respond well to those themes?
In one of the questionnaires that I show, I think the last question, which was, do you think new homes should have renewable energy facilities such as smart meters, LED lights, solar panels, grey water recycling? And 98% of the students said yes. And the remaining 2% said, well, they weren't sure about the cost because sometimes it's can be quite costly. So I think education is really important. One good example of engaging children and young people in sort of having input in renewable energy in the context of the sustainability agenda can be through public art. So we have a piece of public art which is actually assigned by a quite busy area in Cambridge, and we ask students to cycle through, and then that will actually show how many children pass by, and then it shows the number of people who sort of cycle past over a 1 hour period, and sort of talks about the carbon. And I think that's really good visual way of engaging children, because one thing that I've learned is that you have to use very simple language because children have very different capabilities, even if they're in the same age group. So something that's quite simple can actually be very powerful and effective.
Thanks. I suppose leading on from that as well, there's this issue around open space and play space. So we often think of children owning playgrounds, but they're not always inclusive for all groups. And I think something that we've been working on as a practice and trying to engage with was also about trying to ensure that women felt safe, or young women felt safe in public spaces, because very often they're dominated by young guys. I don't know, Helena, if you've had experience with dealing with those gender differences and understanding how we can make spaces feel more welcoming. I suppose people often characterise council estates as being dangerous and feeling unsafe, and I think that particularly applies to women. I wonder if you've done any work around that as well, and thinking about how we can try to prioritise different kinds of spaces that really address that.
Yeah, so our experience is quite specific in terms of what we do, but it has worked. So what we do is we will create a shared experience in a shared space. So we did do a project that was called Child's Play, which was specifically about bringing the history of council estate community parks to life. And those are quite difficult areas to work in. And in the end, the show moved across the ages. So the young people we worked with were a mix of genders and of age. And we would set one of the scenes in the 1970s and one in the 90s. And I suppose SPID has our house style because we really believe in young people and we believe in the power of shared experience. We always look at a difficult subject and come away feeling positive about the future. And definitely that was the experience we had. We went to some pretty tough parks. We toured it around council estate parks around the UK. We did have some instances where we couldn't perform and there were things like double stabbings happening. It wasn't that it was easy and you planned for it. But overall, the show was very successful. A lot of people got involved. We always had a good turnout, and people came away with their misconceptions over children in public parks being challenged. So they saw that these young people worked together. They brought the history to life. Play and shared space as such. They make you feel better. You know, that's the ethos, isn't it? So. That's been my experience, and it's my recommendation that any space can be made sacred and can be made to feel valuable if you do something in it together, and ideally do something that brings history to life.
That's great, thanks. Yeah, I think Sarah's helpfully put in the chat a group that we've worked with, which is a group called Making Space for Girls. So it's a charity that works specifically with that aim, which is really to sort of address the fact that the public space can be very gendered and not welcoming to all, especially younger younger women. That's great. I wonder if there's any more questions in the chat. We've probably got time for one more question.
Abigail,
Abigail, I was just going to
say the power of Bonnie's asking what the young people wanted. So the fact that, you know, quite a large majority are after an industrial style play space, and I suspect if that had been designed for adults for them, wouldn't have come forward. So I think again, it's that sort of Helena and Bonnie just said, you know, asking young people what they want so they can reclaim those spaces is just so important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we've all touched on today how maintaining that open and transparent process, but also at the same time enabling as diverse an array of approaches as possible, using different cultural strategies, art strategies, really giving opportunities for children to be engaged in a multitude of ways. And if we're brave, and we can translate that into real action, whether that's action in terms of policy, as Bonnie is doing, or as Mark's been demonstrating, or Helena, about really giving young people skills to engage more actively in their environment. I think, yeah, it's an overwhelmingly positive set of very different approaches from very different backgrounds, but really thinking about how we can enable young people to continue to increase their agency within the built environment. And I think the idea is that everybody will benefit from that. I think because very often this idea about young people, it feels like it's a small section of the population, but obviously what we're talking about is sort of the future of our cities and our homes. So yeah, I think it was a really successful conversation. I don't know, Victoria, if you wanted to add anything to wrap up.
No, thanks very much, everybody. I think I was thinking about the point is it's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And I sort of keep saying this because we all know it, and it's actually just changing that mindset in a way, or that step change to actually, be it the policies, be it the house builders, whatever, actually realizing this isn't just a nice part, it's really is the important part of it. And I think, again, we will keep saying the future generations, so although it's a small group, everybody becomes the adults and who have that live in that environment. So I think we just have to keep ensuring that we keep pushing this message out there in all different ways. But at the end of the day is when we get to, and why I think mentioned policies, because policies we know do have that impact, but we also need to ensure that the sort of house builders are looking at this when they're designing new communities, because actually housing usually is about community. It's not about a house or a home or a flat. It's actually about communities. So I think that's really the sort of takeaway that we all know. We just need to ensure that, let's say, the unconverted are listening as well as the converted. So thanks everyone very much for a really interesting session. And of course, making space for young people actually is next month on the 6th of March. So we will be extending that kind of conversation about for girls and for young people within that session. So look forward to seeing everybody there who's online here. And again, thanks very much for your input, fantastic input.